Second. Hello, everybody. My name is Volker Friedrich. I'm the founding partner and managing director of GBP International, an international consulting and advisory firm based in Asia Pacific. And today we are going to continue to run our interview with Asian experts, Asian insiders. And today we are focusing on India, and I'm very happy to have Pawan, my friend and partner from India, with us here today. Welcome, Pawan. We are going to have a discussion about the real and true India. And just a short intro, I was living and working in India 35 years ago already as a young trainee. And I would like to say India has changed in many, many aspects, but in at least the same number of aspects, India is still the same as 30, 40 years ago. Traditional, rural, problems here and there, but also, on the other hand, a very exciting and dynamic country, which we see today. And we would like to have this opportunity to discuss with Pawan what are the success stories we see in India, where are some problems still remaining, and we promise you a very honest and open talk about India. Welcome, Pawan. Maybe you introduce yourself shortly for our audience.
Thank you, Volker, for having me here on your show. It's indeed always a pleasure to talk to you and discuss all the professional things about doing business in Asia with you. You are a Asia veteran, I would call it.
Thank you.
With decades of experience with you in terms of doing business in Asia, Southeast Asia. So yeah, and it has been a pleasure working with you for the last so many years and exchanging views and thoughts. My company is called Kasfu Consulting. We are based out of New Delhi, India, and we have been in business for the last about a decade plus, working with lots of European companies, especially from Scandinavia, and then going on to South Europe, and for getting them market entry into India. So when I speak today, I will speak also with my experience of having helped a number of companies and seen their progress, some success stories, some failure stories, yeah. and maybe to bring out some of those aspects for the viewers today.
Interesting. Pawan, I think you shouldn't hide the fact that you also have a previous history as a very successful military officer. And people who know India know that the military in India is also a very strong, powerful segment of the economy. Maybe one or two words about your career in the military service.
Yeah, thank you, Volker. So I've been, my career has been a total military career. I was in the Indian Army for 26 years, having worked at various levels and having interacted with all kinds of Indian troops and working conditions all across the country. So that gave me a very strong background when in terms of cultural, identifying the cultural differences and then the way the business works in various parts of the country. Having done that, I left Army in 2011 and then came out and I joined the hospitality. So I got a good network when I learned the ropes, transition from military to the civil, into the corporate world, and then got into the business consulting. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Very good. So maybe Pawan, let's start with a big elephant in the room, and I put myself here as a representative of our audience from Europe. When we open the headlines or the news channel in the internet, it's all about India and China as the two big elephants, or one elephant and one dragon, so to say. If somebody asks you, what is a major difference from your perspective from a market entry strategy or a market entry option a European company has when they look at expanding in Asia and they choose India or China and they compare the options, whether we should put our money on India or China? And obviously you are a little biased, but we take that for granted. Yeah.
Of course, that's being very fair. But again, India and China, when you do the comparison, you cannot compare apples with oranges. Both have got their own strengths. India has its own strengths. China has its own strengths and weaknesses. China has had early advantage over India. India has was always doing well, but yet it's over the last a decade or so that, or maybe more, about 15 years or so, then we have really got into a top gear and started to look outwards when we liberalized our economy and allowed the Western companies to come in, and that is where we took on. So I will really not compare. I mean, both are powers. One is already a superpower. A second one is a striving to a power. What we need to look at when the European companies are coming to Asia and when they start to look at China and India, they need to do a proper a research, a proper introspection as to where do they want to go and why do they want to go and what are they going to achieve. Yeah. So in my opinion, there are the three things one must look at when you think of India or China. Both have got strategic advantages. Yeah. And in terms.
Yeah, typically it's not either or, you know, and both big countries are markets by itself, by definition. But I'm observing, and I'm part of the, let's say, the Asia promotion business over the last 20 years or so. And we have to acknowledge there is a change in perception. In the last 15, 20 years, all the seminars, all the roadshows, all the business delegations, it was China, China, China. And that was a big driving force of Asia. And I would say easily by a factor of 1 to 10. And now, absolutely, over the last probably 2 to 3 years, we see a little shift. And all the other countries, India and also ASEAN countries, they are getting more attention. And I would say rightly so, because they have been neglected in a way. And I think that is a very positive sign for rebalancing the whole Asian activities.
If I may, so India has come out of the closet. When you talk of it flexing its economic muscles, when we talk of that, so our economy has been growing leaps and bounds. It's been growing very fast. We are now the 5th largest economy in the world, striving to be the number 3 in another 2 to 3 years' time. We have the population on our side, in terms of a young population. Out of 1.4 billion population today, nearly half is below 25 years. Yeah. And that is the population dividend that we're going to have.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think everybody who looks at the numbers, nobody can deny the power and the potential of India. But still, I mean, playing a little bit the devil's advocate here, if I talk to companies who are either already invested in India or who are planning an investment, still we have, I would say, more complaints than enthusiasm. And that goes to bureaucracy problems, slow processing, infrastructure issues, getting the right people to the factory, et cetera, et cetera. From your experience, from your case studies, let's say over the last 2 to 3 years, where do you see the biggest challenges, despite all the good news we hear?
Yeah, it'll be easy for me to start saying what are the good things, but I don't.
Well, we are positive people. Normally we talk about the good things, but we assume yes, people know the good things. So now we're talking about the problematic issues as well.
Yes, you rightly brought out. It is the perception about India which is deep rooted. What India was 15 years ago, 20 years ago is not what India is today. So when you talk of, certainly, when you look at India, the bureaucracy hurdles are there. When you talk of infrastructure difficulties, yes, they are there. When you talk of, I will even use the word, when people have when you look at India, they have the thing in their mind, corruption. Well, I will say, yes, it is there. So these things are there, but it is the degree which is much, much, much less now. So the things have improved. So it is not that I'm saying it, but also the world bodies who have been doing research on India. So, in competitive index, we are now we have really jumped up to 37. In terms of ease of doing business, which World Bank says we are somewhere on the top. So these are things, and all these are benchmarked on certain parameters, infrastructure. Yeah.
So the trend is definitely India's friend at the moment, we can say. And all the indexes you mentioned rightly by OECD, World Bank, IMF, etc., India is on an upward path, which is on an upward path, yes, which is very positive. And I think it is also reflected in the overall numbers of foreign direct investments coming to India more and more. We see an increment not small, but quite drastically, I would say, positive for India again. So the numbers speak for itself.
True.
But still, I think, and I also see that in other countries which we are working in, for example, Malaysia, the perception is very tough to break, you know. And people, they do have their track record, they have their personal experiences, they have the company structure set up, people traveling back and forth, they tell their stories. And of course, it's like in the media, you know, bad news sells and bad news sticks.
Yes.
I think that is a problem we have to address by educating people more, encourage them to travel and feel and experience the positive vibes about a country by itself.
So talking of perception and talking of mindset, I've traveled extensively to Europe and also interacted with so many companies and the large CEOs. What happens is that people coming from Europe, they have to come out of that mindset that if I say India is big, again, you will say, hey, everybody knows that. But well, India is big, and then it's big not only in size, it's in terms of population, different people, different languages, different federal structure of India. People have to understand that we come here. We have a structure wherein there are so many states, and each state is though it's governed by the central rules, but yet every state had its own policies. And this
Yeah.
is where so a European company cannot transpose its strategies from Europe to India when coming as so they have to have a very open mind.
Yeah.
And this goes very well because within Europe also different countries have got different mindset, different agility in terms of thinking. And this is where when I interact with companies, I realize certain country people they have a different way, and once they fail because of their so-called linear thinking,
Mm.
right? And then they categorize the country.
Mm.
India is difficult.
Yeah.
Well, it is difficult because you did not follow the right path.
Yeah. Well, I can't agree more with you. And there are so many, let's say, unanswered matters of India. For example, India is not a country, it's a continent with,
Absolutely.
I don't know, 23 or 27 different states. It's like when you say Europe is one market. No, it's not.
No.
Even though we have the European Union and the common market, etc., it's state by state. And as you rightly say, every state needs a different strategy in marketing, in sales, in production, recruiting, etc. So
Let me begin with an example.
that's a good idea. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's so there is a company which is into F&B, food and beverage space.
Mhm.
They say, hey, let's launch in India. We are successful in 6 countries in Europe. We have got everything going. Now India is a big market. So now this is just a big market, right? Let's launch in India. And they come to us and then we start saying, hey, listen, that's right. It's we can launch in India, but where in India? No. So without naming the company, let's take a beer. So they wanted to launch beverage beer. And we said, hey, listen, it is not that you can go to North India or to South India or to West India. Should we launch in Delhi or should we launch in Punjab, which is, where the population is very young and smart and their high consumption of alcohol, or should we go to the West and go to Goa, where there's a lot of tourists coming in,
Mm.
or should we go? And each of these are distances, if I say 2.5 to 3 hours by air. So that is traveling from Finland to Italy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good example. And I would like to add another example we discussed the other day. And that is in the renewable energy market, and there is a very different problem now where we know the market in India for renewable energy, wind farms, wind turbines, offshore wind, solar is huge. It's massive. When we speak to the companies here in Europe, they say, yes, we know, but we are so busy here in Germany, in Europe, we don't even have the people to serve the Netherlands and Austria, and not to mention going to India. We just don't have the capacity to build a new factory, to transfer part of our production. And that, I think, is a very big challenge. And companies just cannot copy the plans or the engineering and recruit ad hoc 100 or 500 engineers in India without transferring part of their own know-how and part of their own teams to India. They just don't have the time. And that is a challenge I see, which is increasing over time, because the major problem companies here in Europe have is finding qualified, dedicated, motivated people. How do we solve that?
So Volker, what I will say is this particular thing that you're talking is more applicable to the SMEs or to MSMEs.
Yeah.
But when it of the larger companies who have a larger wherewithal, who have got a large financial muscle, now they are the ones who diversify. They come to India, and based on, and I'm talking of now manufacturing industry, right? So they come and set up manufacturing bases in India and use it as a hub for exporting to their products to either to Southeast Asia or to Middle East, because India is the hub. So if we talk of heavy machinery, India is the hub from where it goes to Nepal, to Bhutan, to Southeast Asia, towards Thailand. Everything it goes from there, and also from there shipping lanes are there, so it goes to Middle East. So there's a lot of companies who have diversified and who have made India as the hub of manufacturing, as an export hub.
Yeah.
Like an example of tractors, companies who are manufacturing tractors. India is a major hub today for manufacturing of tractors. India is a major hub for manufacturing of heavy machinery, for cranes, for those ones which are used in mines. So this is how it has happened. So companies who feel that that they cannot come to India because their hands already full, they're too full. Well, then again, we talking of perceptual differences once again over here.
Yeah. And certainly it's different when you look at, for example, Apple or Tesla building a massive factory in India compared to a small, medium-sized company with, let's say, 500 people overall. And they start with a small setup where they need maybe 50 or 100 people to get the baby growing. Yeah. And that is a totally different perception. And it's also much more critical for the survival of the overall company. And therefore, they must be double sure that this project is going to take off and be successful. That's why they are hesitant as well.
That's true. And also some of the smaller companies, they depend on the governmental aids for reaching out to the developing world or to the developing countries. Now, this is once again a thing which is because most of the companies, the small companies, are family owned in Europe.
Yeah.
And this is one advice to, I'll say my observation for the European companies for coming to Asia is that you have to take risk. But when you take risk, it has to be a calculated risk. And where do the cost cutting, where they do the cost cutting and set themselves for failure is that they want to come to India or they want to come to certain countries in Asia, but they do not do the proper market evaluation. So this is one thing in the market research, in the market evaluation, they need to have certain budgets for doing this kind of a study so that they're able to understand what the market is all about, what is the size of the market, what is the competition, what are the government policies, what are the enablers, and most important, what are those obstacle areas which are going to block their entry. And this is where,
yeah, I think there we have our common experience, how difficult it is to convince a potential investor to spend money for research, for finding out the facts and the figures. Many cases, companies think, well, we just Google a little bit in Wikipedia and then we have the basic facts and figure. That's too easy. And I also want to maybe provocatively a little bit say, when you say government aids, and over the years, I come to the conclusion, if a company solely starts to look into Asia because there is a government's subsidy available, a support program, if that is a major reason, they should better stop doing it at all. Yeah, because I agree with you. If they don't have the resources to finance the expedition, I'd like to call it, the adventure, better don't start, better focus in your home markets until you are ready.
I agree with you fully on that, Volker. I can give you example of two companies which are into precision machinery from Italy. I can, without naming the companies, they branded India as a no-go.
Yeah.
Why? Because they went to the internet. They found two potential suppliers or manufacturers in India. Of course, we all know how it is, the websites or Photoshop. They wanted to save money on the research. They didn't want boots on the ground, but they wanted to do, primary research of the net and find a company. And of course, they set themselves a failure. They failed. They sunk in a lot of money. And then they said, hey, we are not going to India because now we have trust issues.
Yeah.
But trust issues came because of the initial step.
Well, I think there are dozens of examples, and I would like to present one example where we worked together on a project assignment where we did one-to-one interviews with company CEOs. We conducted webinars, workshops, where we really went really deep into the market structures, into the competition, into the price leveling, into the regulatory side. And this is certainly something no ChatGPT, no artificial intelligence, or no Google website will be able to tell you. And this is something which is advisable if you talk about a major business or major investment program, not only in India, basically anywhere, yes. whether East or West. And still, we see sometimes companies are falling short of doing that.
But coming back to India and the business environment right now, I must tell you, Volker, that because of a great push on the digitalization, a lot of good has taken place. The financial transparency has come in, so that has brought down the corruption. If you remember, I'd said initially, yes, there is, but it is less. Infrastructure, which was a major roadblock for the companies to come into India because of this Lenten bread. But then again, there is a huge amount of push on the development of infrastructure is taking place right now. And we have, can you imagine today, the speed at which the roads are being laid in India? If I were to tell you, it's about 37 to 38 kilometers of highway is being laid per day today. That is the speed at which it is going. Industrial corridors have been identified, are being made. And this is all is happening. And this is where the World Bank comes in. This is where the IMF comes in. And when they start to see and they say, hey, yeah, listen, there's something happening. Ports are being connected by roads. Inland waterways, which was going on, now they are being used, inland. So the transportation is taking place through the length and breadth of the country, through the rivers. We have a major, rivers
certainly. I can only repeat what you say. India is on the right track, but and of course it doesn't happen over time. And just by the size of the country, even if you build 37 kilometers per road every day, you should do, by definition, you should build 370, But of course, it's physically not possible.
Possible.
So we need to have patience as well. And I think patience is one of the virtues you need to have when you start dealing in India. But I agree. Overall, India is on the right track. There is no second opinion about that, And of course, you can have difference with the political leadership, party-wise. There's always this fighting going on anywhere in the world. But generally speaking, I think we can look forward to the future of India altogether. And I think we will certainly see more interest coming gradually, slowly. We are here to help, and we also play our little role in educating the audience and educating people about India.
One of my messages would be, even though we are into consulting business, but one of my clear message would be for the companies who are interested in coming to India or to Asia, that you certainly require in capital letters, experienced hand in the country to lead you in. Now, how do you want it? Where you want it? You need to have some budgeting done for that, because that is your path to success.
I mean, that's a perfect closing remark, Pawan. And whether that experienced hand will be you or somebody else, that is the choice of the company. Certainly.
That's a choice. The job of a consultant is to give you options. That's what we do. We give you options, and we recommend, we make sense out of those options and give you. And
exactly.
It is up to the client to decide which is the right option.
I think one thing, and that should be also the closing remark from my side after all these experiences, India cannot be managed by remote control at home. And
Absolutely.
so everybody is invited to spend a holiday, to make a discovery tour, visit a few cities, even as a family holiday, to get a touch and feel on the smell of the country. And
Yes.
I'm sure they will come back very excited about it. And we would be glad if you contact us for further discussion, some ideas we can exchange, of course, with you. And thank you very much, Pawan, for that very enlightening discussion. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And I'm sure we will see each other again shortly. And we continue to have a word on India wherever needed and wherever required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Volker. Thank you for having me over here and to share my views on doing business in India. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.